What's up? Welcome to another episode of Recliner Wrestling Review. I'm your host, Jared Isaacs, along with my co-host, Mr. John Reese. Let me get John here in the studio. There we go. There's John. How's it going, my friend? How are you today?
Great. Good to be back again.
We are here to discuss SummerSlam 1992. I am very excited for this. This is our first deep dive. We did our first episode trying to kind of get to know each other and tell you guys a little bit about ourselves. And so today we're jumping in head first into a special pay-per-view for one of us. We'll talk about that too. But before we carry on, I want to make sure that you guys go to the YouTube page here and hit the subscribe button, the notification bells. Be sure to like, comment, share, and all the fun YouTube stuff. So yeah, that's what we're here for. SummerSlam, Wembley Stadium, and took place in London, England. So John, what are your thoughts on this pay-per-view?
Well, I really enjoy it. For me, this pay-per-view holds a special place in my heart. It is one of those old Coliseum videos I used to rent at the old Blockbuster. And
yeah, we talked about that.
Actually,
I've got to actually. Oops. I've actually got the. There you go. So that's the. Somewhere. There we go. So that's the VHS slipcover, if you will, from the what would be Coliseum home video. So yeah.
Gorgeous. What do you remember watching this back in the day? What are your memories without rewatching it now?
So, okay, I'm glad that you said that, because without rewatching it, my thoughts are that it had a lot of big names. I'll say that. And we'll, of course, get into the nitty-gritty about the booking and just different things about the show. But overall, like, if you just look at the cover, if you will, lots of big names, lots of immediate childhood memories pop up. And so for me, I was glad to see so many big names. We'll talk about if they kind of lived up to the hype.
Yeah. For me, I remember looking back as a kid, Brett and Bulldog, that was the big memory, and Legion of Doom. Those were the things that stood out. I was like, okay, before we watch this back, those are the things that I remember and was excited to watch it for.
Yeah, for sure. And same for me, but probably honestly more so. At this time, I was a huge fan of The Undertaker. So all the promos leading up to it, where Taker and Paul are building the supersized casket for Kamala, all that kind of stuff. Good stuff. I enjoyed their feud for what it was.
Yeah, for sure. And the casket's to come later, but yeah.
True.
Yeah, but the
as I was saying that, I'm like, wait a minute, there's no casket, but that's all right.
No.
But yeah, it all runs together.
So I started watching wrestling about a year later. So going back and watching this on VHS, it's just awesome. So
Gotcha.
That's what really hooked me, and I got to see. In '93, Brett's on top, but back in '92, he's defending the Intercon against Davey Boy, and that's the draw for me.
Yeah, for sure. I wanted to talk about. Of course, originally this was going to take place. Do you know where?
Washington, D.C.?
That's correct, yes. In the Capitol Center in Landover, Maryland, which is, basically Washington, D.C. It was moved to London only 3 or 4 months out because kind of business was slow in the United States, and business was actually really expanding overseas. And so business-wise, it just kind of made sense. And they did a good job packing Wembley Stadium. It was impressive.
So when I started it, watching for the rewatch, going back a bit, I had to. I couldn't log into WWE Network. Believe it or not, it's not supported on the PlayStation 3. So I had to go. I had to go dig out
PlayStation 3. Golly,
I had to go dig out my DVD cooler.
Oh wow!
Of SummerSlam.
Yeah.
So
Nice.
Got to watch on DVD, and the first thing that stood out to me was 80,000 people in '92.
Yes,
That's
80,355.
huge business.
Yeah.
My goodness, and you see it when you watch it right
Oh, it's
away.
massive.
Vince is on the commentary, just 80,000, 80,000, eighty
Oh yeah.
thousand, like
Yep, for sure. He
right
was
away in your face.
definitely proud. Yeah.
Yeah,
And this and as you say that too, for everybody else watching, like keep in mind this is before it was common knowledge that Vince was the owner. Now looking back, you're like, oh, no wonder he was the one saying 80,000 because he was so proud. But we always assumed he was just an announcer up at this point anyway, and he was probably just either getting the information told to say or he was just saying it or whatever. But in retrospect, yeah, he was. I mean, definitely that was ego.
yeah, yeah.
Hey, look at what we did. And about that 80,000, one thing that I noticed as far as the people, it looked, even though there was 80,000 people there, like up in the stands and stuff, it looked totally packed. But down on the floor, it looked like there was so much room. You talk about social distancing. But it was almost interesting because it was almost like people were aligned in almost like the Union Jack on the floor. Like there was like triangular angles and stuff. And I was like, I don't know if that was done on purpose, but I definitely saw that. So
Yeah, I just kept thinking they did look spread out, but there were still so many. You could tell it was huge.
Yeah. Yep. If you look at the floor, it doesn't. You don't calculate 80,000 from that, but then when they do the up shots and like see it's like a huge Coliseum kind of thing. It's massive. It's insane. Yeah, so they did $250,000 in pay-per-view buys and over $2 million in ticket sales that day. So, and like you said, Vince McMahon and Bobby Heenan on commentary for the show.
Yeah.
So,
and they did $2.99 for me at the Blockbuster. So
there you go. Yes,
but
indeed.
yeah, and Bobby and Vince together, that was a great match. For me, as a child, I thought Vince was just a stooge. Like you were talking about him being behind the scenes. Like I thought he was just like a nobody, and he's the owner, he's the man.
Right. Yep. Yep, for sure. Definitely interesting, to say the least. Whenever you find out that he's got more in it than just being an announcer. Yeah,
for sure.
So, all right. Is there anything else before we jump right in and talk about our first match? I will say this: you probably have had the luxury, since you own them on DVD, I'm assuming, to have the dark matches, and we'll talk about that. But the dark matches, there was 3 of them cut from the WWE Network, and also I believe cut from the Coliseum home videos, and some of them were replayed on later episodes of Superstars and stuff like that. So.
I don't know that the DVD had it because I didn't watch them.
Oh, well, there you go.
The dark matches, anyway.
Yeah. Yep. All right. Well, let's see here. I've got the first one queued up. So up first we have it was the dark match with Jim Duggan and the Bushwhackers versus the Nasty Boys and the Mountie.
Oh, what a pair! What a trio!
So as I started rewatching this and taking my notes, and that was the first match, I'm like, oh, no wonder John's such a mark for the Mountie. This was probably your first introduction.
He's great. He always gets his
he's
man.
Something, man.
I don't understand how the Mountie fits with the Nasty Boys, but I mean,
yeah, it's a total cluster in my opinion.
1992, stuff happened.
Right. Yeah. Well, I like how you say that about the Mountie and the Nasty Boys, but what is Jim Duggan and the Bushwhackers doing together? Minus the fact that they're at the time super over baby faces, but I mean they have nothing in common.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that match goes 12 minutes and 33 seconds, which for an opening match it's not bad, but for the kind of cluster that it was, the thrown togetherness, I feel like that was probably too long considering some of the other matches got 6 minutes or less, and we'll get into that. But yeah. So in my opinion, in this match, nothing really memorable. This was a very thrown together. Vince is a big fan of opening with something that's kind of high energy and that kind of stuff. I won't say that this is necessarily high energy, but it is kind of also his other MO is to have a let me up match, as he calls it, or a popcorn match, if you will. And it feels like this event was kind of opened with that. So,
yeah, but I mean, pre-show, I mean, you got to have your baby faces out there to get that first big reaction.
For sure. And and I'm glad you said pre-show, because nowadays if you watch a WWE event, you definitely, they have the pre-show, the official pre-show and stuff like that. So this is a pre-show before that was actually even a marketed thing. So yeah, good point. And of course, in that match, Jim Duggan and the Bushwhackers are who ends up winning. So yeah, nothing really memorable to me on that one, but it was good. It was decent. And if you have any notes along this, feel free to stop me and slow me down. But
go for it. I missed the pre-show. I started with
all right.
the opening match on the main show.
Yeah, no, and that's fair too. They're dark matches for a reason, so I won't spend a lot of time on them. The next one was let's see here. We had El Matador.
Yeah, Tito.
Tito Santana versus Papa Shango. This match goes 6 minutes. And Papa Shango is the one that wins that. So, yeah. And then, of course, this is now where we start the actual show. Let's see here. We have the Legion of Doom with Paul Ellering against Money Inc., which is Ted DiBiase and IRS, Erwin R. Shyster. Yeah. So,
Jimmy Hart was with IRS and Money Inc.
Yes.
That was crazy to me. Like the whole coat, the jacket looked awesome. And you forgot who else was with LOD and Paul.
No, Vinny, the puppet. What's his name?
Rocco.
Yeah. Rocco. Yeah. That was an interesting little gimmick he tried for. I feel like it was about 6 months or so that he tried with Rocco, but
I loved it.
Yeah, I mean, it was great. And as an adult watching it back, it's hysterical to see how blatant he is with it. It's like, if this is Rocco, he's just sitting right here, and then they zoom the camera in, and Ellering's just doing the talking, like right off. It's like, wow, no ventriloquist reused.
Get him, Hawk.
Yeah, basically.
But yeah, my thoughts on this was Money Inc. came out first. Jimmy Hart had an awesome jacket on. I thought that was really cool, and I don't remember him being with Money Inc. So that was
that was random to me too.
That was a surprise.
As Jimmy Hart's MO, he always looks the part. If he's thrown into something, he gives 120%. Like he goes above and beyond to fit in and make it get over. Yeah,
and so they were out first, and DiBiase wearing all white. I blanked on that also. I don't know.
I did big time too, and I don't know storyline building up to it. Looking at it on paper, I'm assuming that Money Inc. is obviously supposed to be the heels. So why wear white? That's supposed to be a babyface thing. And I mean, that's kind of a broken idea or thought process now, but back then that was, I mean, heels wore black and babyfaces wore white meat babyface.
Yeah, LOD made the black look cool, so maybe that had to do with it. But LOD came out on the motorcycles, Ellering leading the way with Rocco on the bike.
With the bungee cord, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
Bungee strap, yeah. No, that entrance was amazing. Like, I popped so hard for that as a kid. I mean, I was a huge LOD fan. Yeah, for sure. Being a huge LOD fan, what a rush. Like, all of a sudden, like, it's the LOD pop. It's, that it's infamous for. But, when they came out on the Harleys and stuff, I was like, man, this is, like, next level cool.
Yeah. So. What'd you think about the match?
As far as the match, I thought that I'll say that it was it's exactly what an opener should be. Lots of good back and forth. In my opinion, Ted DiBiase is like so underrated. He was used so heavily and stuff in the NWA, and then he gets to WWE, and he had some moderate success and whatnot, but man, you talk about somebody that was very capable holding the belt.
I think he was very successful. I mean, say moderate success. Like, I mean, that $1 million title is iconic. Him coming out in the black
but it was
suit,
given to him because there was. I'm going to mix the names up now because I'm going off the top of my head. I'm going off script. But it was supposed to be like he was supposed to be involved somehow with the Honky Tonk Man, I believe, and getting the IC belt. Honky didn't want to drop, and so the kind of smooth over was to give him $1 million belt, to give him his own belt.
Okay.
So yeah. So and again, just the same as what we were saying with Jimmy Hart, I feel like Ted made the best of it and totally made the belt. Versus, you know, I'm trying to think of another belt to kind of compare that to, but it could have been a total flop.
Taz with the FTW title.
There you go. Yeah. It's completely on the people to make it make or break.
Yeah, and I think DiBiase was always great. My thoughts on the match, I liked it, but I think I liked more just like, oh, it's LOD versus Money Inc. This is cool. Like, it starts out like LOD is getting their shine on, and then they start going behind the referee's back, and I forgot if they were beating up Ted or I think it was IRS, and I was like, oh, so they're doing the heel thing, but I mean, it worked because it was LOD. So I was just like, okay, whatever.
Yes.
Jimmy got involved a little at the end. I don't think Ellering did too much in the match at all. And they teased the Doomsday, but they didn't hit the Doomsday, and that kind of upset me. I'm like, for a first match opener, like, hit the Doomsday.
Right, you want to see the big finish. Yes, but absolutely.
Yeah, LOD went up, so that was cool. And for you, like, you didn't mention the gold shoulder pads.
Yeah,
for
no,
LOD.
that was a massive. That was a massive bonus for me.
So I mean, LOD for me, it's just like, I'm excited to see him, win. But I would have liked to have seen a Doomsday.
Yeah, for sure. It really does surprise me, all things considered, that they didn't include that. Yeah,
to finish with the power slam, it's fine.
Yeah, it's cool. Fine. It's kind of a signature move for him, but it's not necessarily like the big finish, if you will.
Yeah, and like to tease it the way they did and then not get it, it's like, okay.
Yeah.
I guess IRS didn't want to take the bump. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. That's interesting for sure. Yeah. So that one goes 15 minutes and 10 seconds, which again, as what I was saying with the Jim Duggan and Bushwhackers 6-man match, that's a good kind of, 12, 15 minutes is a great opener. So
absolutely agree. It was great. I mean, it was good, but I was more popping just like, oh, it's 90s LOD. This is awesome.
Right. Yeah, for sure. So we've got LOD goes over. There we go. Yeah. So the next match, we've got Nails versus Virgil. Oh boy. All right. Well, let's hear it. I'll say this. I've never understood this obsession with Virgil. I don't get it. I don't care about him. He's not over enough to me whatsoever.
What?
Oh yeah, no. Like I totally don't get this whatsoever.
I thought he was great in this match. I thought the issue was. I thought the issue was Nails.
Oh, 100%, 100%. But now, and that, I don't want to take away. Like, yes, Virgil is very athletic. Like some of his drop kicks and stuff were very impressive. But overall, I don't know, man. Like, you're gonna have. I mean, literally, if you look at it on paper, you've got Virgil following the Legion of Doom. That's bad.
And I would argue, if you watch the crowd, they're cheering just as hard for Virgil as they were LOD, and that surprised me.
Yeah, I mean, you're right on that for sure. Yeah,
but he was over at the time, so.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Nails was.
When was Nails ever over?
Yeah. Nails was just chokehold, sleeper, and it was rough.
100%. It really was. Yeah. So do you know a lot of the behind the scenes hubbub about this match as far as Nails is concerned?
Is this where he tried to hold him up?
Well, kind of, yeah. So, okay. Well, there's that side of it. The Nails side of the story is that the payoff finally came. Of course, for those of you that are watching that don't know how payoffs work, and it's not like I know it because I've never worked in WWE for a day. But according to everybody, the payout, of course, obviously you get we talked about over $2 million in the gate, so it's not $200 million and you just split it amongst all these wrestlers. You have to pay for the venue and all this overhead and stuff, and the pie gets narrowed down and narrowed down. Well, to divvy out that much money takes a couple of months, and so it was totally common back then to have a match at SummerSlam and not get paid until several months later. So the boys, if you will, don't get paid until December for this event. Well, Nails sees his payout for this and decides it's far too low. And so, yeah, this is where, because of this match, is where he goes and tries to basically choke out Vince McMahon to get a better payoff. And, yeah, he was done with the company after that.
Well, the match sucked. He should have been done after SummerSlam.
Yeah, he shouldn't have even been on SummerSlam. And I try to keep in mind, too, this is definitely the era of occupational gimmicks. But come on. And then he goes over to WCW and he becomes the prisoner. WWE shortly sends him a cease and desist. They're like, no, you can't do a con gimmick. Like, just what are you doing?
Yeah. And I remember hating Nails as a kid because he was the bad guy. He was the heel.
Right.
And as an adult, I hate him because he sucked. He was just terrible.
100%. Yeah. Yeah. So that's the story of Nails. Overall, what was your takeaway from the match?
I was shocked how over Virgil was, and that was like my big takeaway was the crowd was just going nuts for him, and that was my takeaway. Like, honest and truly, I was like, Virgil was one over dude.
And I just don't. I mean, and of course. I think a lot of that has to do with booking correctly. How he was with Ted and then the abused servant or whatever. And then he splits away and immediately is over. Now, of course, anything like that probably wouldn't have much legs with it unless you kind of grew the character, gave the character more layers, which ended up not happening. So, and maybe that's a part of too why I'm just kind of at a loss when it comes to Virgil. But you're right, man. The crowd loved it. So they're eating it up.
Any takeaways for you?
My takeaway, like I said, I've never been a huge Virgil fan, and it's not that I don't like him. I just don't get it. But I do want to underline his athleticism. Like I said, his drop kicks looked really good. I've even got it playing over here on the side, off camera. And his punches, I don't know who worked with him on his ring work. I'm assuming probably Ted. Who is also really good at throwing punches, but his Virgil's working punches to me stood out. Very snug, very, very good looking. The match goes 3 minutes and 55 seconds, which is exactly perfect. Like under 5 minutes for this match is spot on. Because any more than that, you're going to expose the fact that Virgil is not actually a trained the boys and whatnot, but as far as I know, I don't believe he ever went to like wrestling school or anything like that. So yeah. Let's see here. Nails is the one that goes over, which is probably why he was upset about a payoff. Yeah. So and we'll end up addressing this, but I'll throw it in before this match. We have our first interview backstage with Ric Flair. And they're teasing the which side is he going to be on, this kind of thing. And I'll leave it at that because there's a lot of meat on the bone when it comes to that. So,
and I think that was actually switched. I think it was between the LOD and Virgil.
Yeah, that's what I said before this match.
Okay,
yeah.
Gotcha.
I missed it because after this match is where we go backstage. And ironically, it's the same exact storyline for Sherry Martel. Which side is she going to be on?
Mm-hmm.
And to me, I was like, oh, man. First of all, not only is it not great to have two storylines that are that paralleled, but literally to have them like, on bookended basically on either side of a match with their promos about which side are they going to be on.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, what are we doing?
Well, I did like the stipulation in the match.
For which one?
For Shawn and Rick. You remember it?
Sean and Rick. Sean and Rick didn't wrestle. Oh, Rick Martel.
Rick
I'm thinking
Martel.
Ric Flair. Yeah.
I was like, did we watch the same show?
Right.
Come on, brother.
SummerSlam 92, brother.
Yeah. But yeah, the match with Sherry, Sean, and Rick Martel. You remember it?
Oh yeah. So Sherry thought they were both gorgeous, and they were both pretty boys. So whatever you do, make sure you don't hit each other in the face. And so that was, I don't know whose idea that was in real life, who booked that, but that was brilliant. I loved it so much.
It was awesome.
It really was. Yeah. So here we go. We've got Shawn Michaels versus Rick Martel, the model. Yeah. So this one goes 8 minutes and 6 seconds. Yeah. Looking back, whenever I watched this, I was like, again, on paper, Shawn Michaels in 92 versus Rick Martel. I'm like, really? Rick Martel?
I have the opposite opinion on that.
Oh, really?
I was really excited for this.
Was it because of the gimmicks and the stuff surrounding it?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
The model versus the Heartbreak Kid.
Yeah.
That's the story. I mean, throw Sherry in there, and then the stipulation. I loved the build-up to the match. The match itself was good. I didn't like the finish, but I thought it was good up until the finish. But yeah, the don't hit the face. I thought that was great.
Yeah, that's absolutely brilliant. And for me, I guess it's just, like you said, the Heartbreak Kid versus the model on paper, license to print money. It's amazing. But it's just Rick Martel. I'm like, I mean, that's your best worker, but that's who had the gimmick. So of course,
he had the gimmick and he had the look. That was
he really did. He really did. Yeah. Yeah. So overall, I thought it was a good match. You could see a lot of early, like what Shawn Michaels became famous for, the psychology and the pacing of the match, I guess. That kind of stuff was really good. I don't know if I said it or not, but the match goes 8 minutes and 6 seconds. Yeah, so I'll wait until we get to the finish. Do you have thoughts of the actual match itself?
I thought it was good. I mean, nothing stands out. Just the they did well with 8 minutes.
Yeah, yes, for sure. I can't remember if it's this match. I should have.
Sherry was the star too. I mean,
oh, absolutely. Just like
coming
what we
out
said
of
about
that,
Jimmy Hart. Yeah. Like you could throw Sherry in anything and she'll give more than what's asked to make it get over.
And like her pretending to faint and all that was great.
It was great.
But
like
she was
honestly.
amazing. Yeah.
she like, I don't know. To me, the acting part of her fainting, like when she's on the apron, like I was like, okay, that's kind of awful. And then like when she just like pretends she's dead and goes over on the floor, I'm like, golly, that was a bump, man. Dick one for the team. Yeah. Yeah, good stuff. I don't remember if it was this match or another match, like I was saying. Probably should have taken better notes. I'll take note of that. But I feel like it might have been this one. That there were so many false finishes. I can't remember if it was this match though. I thought I had it written down, but I don't.
False finishes for kind of weak double count out to end it.
Yeah. Oh, the double count out was not good.
Which is a running theme of the show with the DQs and I mean the main event I think more than made up for it, but
what's funny is that was a huge criticism of just 5 or 6 years later with WCW was ordering these pay-per-views and stuff and then getting more than half the matches with no solid finish. And that, in retrospect, that's everybody's like, oh, that's a big reason why WCW didn't last. Well, also in retrospect, that's probably a big reason why business is down for WWF in this era. Because
but
at times they were really
America,
good. What's that?
Down in America, but booming in Wembley in London.
Oh, 100%. I think there's a fine line, and it's probably incredibly hard to navigate. the decent amount of time to stretch out a storyline and play it out over time, the slow build or the slow burn, if you will. But there's a fine line between that and like just squeezing the orange way too much and there's nothing left in it, kind of thing.
And I feel like even back then, when you're going to one of the big four, you have to have. I mean, this is before the In Your House era, but when you have those big pay-per-view shows, you need to have some solid finishes.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yep, I agree. Like, and yeah, 100%. If you do some, wacky non-finished finishes throughout, and In Your House or something like that, I get that, and I know.
Yeah, I mean, it builds it to the next level for those big shows.
Yes, I agree. And yeah, again, I've not stepped foot for a minute in WWF or WWE, but yeah, that only makes sense to me. So, what did you think of the post count out part of the match with the
bucket?
Yeah.
So they throw the water on Sherry, and all I keep thinking is, she's the star. Why are you guys both leaving her?
Right, yeah.
But,
again,
yeah.
I don't understand, the build-up was very great. What side is she going to be on? And then, like, you both are just going to dump her? I don't understand.
I wanted to see some finish where Sherry really turns on one of them and aligns herself with one, and the other guy just blasts him in the face with brass knucks or something that Sherry threw in, and like tie up that whole stipulation and go heel with it. But
as far as the actual throwing of water, I laughed so hard because he got Rick Martel got Sherry as Sean's carrying him, her, but Sean eats a lot of water too and has to like. I can almost see like him like trying to sell it, and then he's like immediately like, oh no, I better not sell this. This is Sherry's spot. But yeah, it was hysterical. So if you watch that back, it's funny to see that. But and then she totally takes the second biggest bump of the match, falling out of Sean's arms, and it was just Sherry's putting in all the work.
Yeah, but I mean, it was a fun story, a solid match. The shenanigans and the double count out. I didn't like the double count out.
100% the same. I strongly agree with that. After she faints and she falls to the floor, did you notice Rick Martel giving her chest compression?
It's fantastic.
I'm so serious. I'm like, this is amazing. Talk about going the extra length, brother.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Literal chest compression. That was noteworthy for me. That's on my notes.
Nice.
Wow. All right, so yes, indeed. Sean and Rick go to a double count out.
Oof.
So then, now we go backstage again, and we've got the Nasty Boys cutting their promo, very over the top as Nasty Boys MO. And Jimmy Hart. Of course,
Jimmy's back.
Jimmy's back with Nasty Boys where he belongs. As you said too, with the coat. Of course, that's Jimmy's MO is to change the look. If he's out there 6 times in a night, he'll have 6 different outfits. So,
every good manager will.
That's exactly right. Yep, 100%. So then we go to our next match, which is. Let's see here. We've got the Natural Disasters, which is Earthquake and Typhoon, versus the Beverly Brothers with the genius Lanny Poffo. So, 3 seconds. So what are your thoughts on this match overall?
I did not remember the Beverly Brothers at all.
100% the same. I'm like, I
loved the genius wearing black. I don't know why. I always remember him in red. So seeing him in, I always picture him in red, in the red gear. But seeing him in black, I was like, oh, that's cool. And my love for the Natural Disasters is real. Singles Earthquake, I don't care about. Singles Tugboat, I don't care about. Put them together, and I love them.
Really?
Don't know why.
I can get that.
But that's the little kid, like, watching it when I was young.
100%. Yeah. No, that childhood filter definitely can be skewed at times.
This is one where I think it held up still.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. Um, in fact, I would go the opposite. I would say that I probably even underestimated them as kids. Like I was so into the gimmick, but then watching them actual work, and looking
Yeah.
through the um, just the lens of being an adult and getting the whole concept now. Man, Fred Ottman and uh, uh, um, I'm blanking.
Tugboat.
Yeah, John Tenta. Um, who, of course, later went on to become Golga and the Shockmaster, respectively. So, yeah. Um, speaking of, well, I don't know, speaking of what, but I found it interesting that it was actually, if you listen to the commentary, I noticed that it's the natural disasters are made up of typhoon and the earthquake. Like, not just earthquake, but
Oh,
the earthquake. I'm like, I don't remember that, As a
I
kid, I
didn't
was
even
just earthquake. But yeah, it
didn't even
was.
hear it.
Same. Yeah. I was like, the earthquake. And that's so because I didn't recognize that or remember that from my childhood, that stood out to me in my rewatch.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, repeatedly, the earthquake. And I feel like this is the match that had all the false finishes that I was like, why? um, I mean, the Beverly Brothers physically looked good. I mean, they looked a lot like what was the name of John Laurinaitis' group, the Cool Dudes or something.
Uh, Skip the Body Donnas.
No. Um, doggone it. Anyway, that's who they look like to me. They look like John Laurinaitis and insert tag team name here. Yeah. Let us know in the comments.
Hot Shots. I don't
It was
know.
like the cool dudes or the I mean,
Yeah.
there were the skateboard guys. Um,
I know. I
yeah.
could draw on a blank.
Well, you just
Let
summed
us
up his
know.
career.
Oh,
But anyway, so they physically looked capable. I won't say imposing, but capable. But again, they just had no, from my recollection, no build up. It was another just kind of thrown together. Like here, we want to feature the natural disasters, and who have we got that we could put them against? So yeah, I probably actually would have enjoyed the natural disasters versus the Nasty Boys way better. Like to me, put the Beverly Brothers
probably.
in the dark match, and that would have been a way better show.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So 10 minutes, 30 seconds. Lots of I really enjoy like the what I call the build of a monster. And not that either of these guys are monsters, but they wrestle like big men. They're treated like big men. Like like especially on the finish where Earthquake does the whole sit on you, count to three kind of thing. Which again, looking back, it was like, man, he was taking such good care of everybody he worked with. But
Yeah.
that was so imposing as a kid. I was like, oh my god. So yeah, good stuff. Overall, good match. Overall,
Got the cheer for the babyface win. I like that.
yeah, for sure, for sure. But overall, nothing to me really stands out about this. The Genius was all right. He said he had a line at ringside, and I can't remember what it was, but it popped me. Um, yeah, and I don't know the poem in the beginning. I was like,
Yeah.
eh.
A show loaded with great managers.
Truly, yeah, and this is 100% the era of great managers and stuff, and that's something I greatly miss, which is a big part of also why I've been enjoying AEW. Tony Khan has been on record as being a big fan of managers and stuff, so
Oh, yeah.
he's trying to kind of
Great.
reincorporate that, whereas WWE in the past several years have totally gotten away from it. So
And with what they're doing in AEW, the managers mean something and they're respected, and it works.
Yeah, there's a reason they've gone with I don't want to say has been, but I mean, they're not in their prime anymore, but their name identity is still massive. So automatically that gives a rub to whoever they work with.
In AEW, yeah,
Yes.
yeah, and Jake is still an incredible promo.
He's an incredible promo, but man, like this might be kind of off topic going into AEW, but
yeah,
I think he's very good pre-produced, like in pre-tapes and stuff, like when they're off set or whatever, or whatever you want to call that. And so like they're in some abandoned warehouse and he's, taking the sledgehammer and stuff and Jake's got a promo. Fantastic. Put him in a ring and a live mic on Dynamite. It's awful. As far as not the delivery, but the content. Some of the stuff that he says, I'm just like, oh my gosh. Or like whenever he was like literally laying on top of Brandy and I was like, whoa, this is massively uncomfortable.
I think that's the 1 week I missed.
Oh, it's been bad. Did you see the one I don't know if I should even say this on our show, but did you see the one a couple of weeks ago where he? Huh?
No, go ahead.
Oh.
I was like, we gotta cut this. We're talking about SummerSlam.
Oh yeah, for sure. Did he see the one where he came out and he was talking about he's gonna bust a nut? Yeah, on Dynamite. I was like, no, Jake, shut the fuck up.
Oh, Jake.
It was awful. So yeah, so like I said, I like them pre-produced.
Yeah, fair enough. So we talked about the finish.
Yeah. So yeah, kind of. So Earthquake does, I think, a body slam and then does the run against the ropes and sit on him, count to 3. Yeah. Again, I really enjoyed that because I enjoy showcasing a big man as a big man kind of thing. So I'm not a fan of big men doing a bunch of high flying maneuvers or getting off their feet too much, which both of these guys did amazing at. Many times where they'd hit the ropes and kind of like do the stagger but not sell it, not fall to your feet. It was brilliant.
Earlier in the show, talking about like big men who can work. Earthquake and Typhoon, absolutely. Nails went to the top rope. Do you remember that spot?
I do.
It just fell on his face. Oh,
yeah. And the commentary talks about he landed right on his face. I was like, oh yeah, he did.
So I mean, that's a drastic difference in like a guy who can't jump off the top rope, then go into Earthquake and Typhoon, who are just awesome.
Yes. So. Yeah. Yep. So then after, let me get this up here. So your winners, of course, are the Natural Disasters.
And I love those old school tag titles.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. Same. Those are gorgeous. I love those so much. I of course, my biggest fandom, as with most people, was in the Attitude Era. And so like this is the New Age Outlaws claim to fame, if you will. And so I remember these belts fondly. But yeah, I'd actually forgotten that they were used as early as 92. I do remember them in like 94, 95, but I had forgotten that they were actually as old as they are. So, because I remember the Smoking Guns holding them as well. Mm-hmm. So,
I think you can go back even further. The Hart Foundation.
That's right. Yeah. Good call.
Those ones had some longevity for sure.
I'm laughing because, like I said, I've got it playing over here, and we've got the Bushwhackers backstage with Mean Gene Okerlund. And, oh, man, you talk about a combination for success. Gene Okerlund in front of anybody is amazing. But, yeah, I always enjoyed the chemistry of the Bushwhackers with Mean Gene. We talked last episode about kind of our introduction to wrestling and stuff. And we talked about, on my end, my dad being a big fan and stuff. And how he had liked like Jim Duggan and John Studd. Another one of his absolute favorites were the Bushwhackers. And so I can remember my dad going to the fridge to get another drink, and he'd be doing this thing. I was like, oh my god. So yeah, and just it's amazing to me how likable the Bushwhackers were for kids, considering what they came from. I don't know if you know much about the sheep herders or not, but they were definitely not kid friendly. They were doing, as from what I remember anyway, like I don't want to say hardcore matches because it was kind of predated hardcore matches, but just a lot more strong style and that kind of thing, I guess, just more rough. So after that match and the Bushwhackers, we've got here we go. We got Crush versus the Repo Man. Woo!
The era of gimmicks continues.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, now if I recall, you're a big Repo Man fan, are you not?
How old were you when you realized Repo Man was from Demolition?
You want to know the truth? Probably 20 something. I was old.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, mid-20s maybe.
Yeah.
I was like, are you kidding?
Yeah, like that was
same. And now, like now, whenever I look at him, whenever I pull this picture up, I'm like, oh, of course.
Yeah.
But back then, yeah,
He was Smash. Is that right?
I believe that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
But yeah, no, I love Repo Man. I like as a little kid watching him, I'm like, this guy's hilarious, and I didn't know what repoing a
I just
car
like
was.
his little,
Oh yeah, he reminded me of the Hamburglar.
100% the same.
So,
I'm so glad you said that.
Yeah,
That was literally in my notes.
Yeah,
I'm like,
oh, he's
yeah.
great. And then growing up, like what we talked about in the first show, I loved Hawaiian Crush.
Did you?
Oh, he's the best! Like, rah, like that's awesome. I mean, not
that's
for
one
my
that
like
was lost on me.
Yeah, not for my neighbors who we'd wrestle with, but like, yeah, it was always fun. I liked Crush as a child. And this match was, I mean, I had fun watching it.
Yeah, no, for sure. I one thing before we get into the match, if you again, I'll have you look at the promo pic for it.
Oh yeah,
that does not look like Crush. Crush is in the match got long hair like a mullet, and it's like blondish, orangish, whatever. And I'm like, wow, why does the promo pic not match? But it totally does not match. So,
it's a little dated.
just a little bit.
The mullet's pulled back.
Yeah, we'll go with that. And what a mullet he had, to be honest. I mean, that was quite a mullet. So again, talking about kind of protecting the big man, Crush had a lot of big man spots, if you will, in this, where he, like at one point he's got Repo Man over the corner and doing his punches and stuff with Repo laid across the corner ropes. I thought that was good. But yeah, again,
what was the time on it?
5 minutes and 41 seconds.
Yeah, it was quick.
It was quick. To me, it was good. No more. Not that it was a bad match. It was just like, again, I don't know. For me, I just never was a big fan of Crush. I just never really got into him. So
gave people a chance to go buy some popcorn, go to the bathroom before the main event.
Yep, for sure. So, winner of that match,
Crush.
Yeah.
And I ask you about time on that match. Our next match, please tell me the time on that.
Okay. So our next match is
heavyweight title.
Yes, this is for the WWE Championship. This is Randy Savage versus the Ultimate Warrior. Before I tell you the time, I'm gonna have you take a guess. What do you think the time was? And why do you ask?
28 minutes. It felt like forever.
It is exactly 28 minutes.
Seriously?
Like on the dot, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's oh my god, you talk about way too freaking long.
Yeah.
I mean, granted, I'm aware that Warrior was mostly squash job matches, if you will, which was perfect for his character. I actually majorly big time loved Ultimate Warrior as a kid.
He had a great comeback. I enjoyed his comeback.
Yep.
I mean, he was
the big
fun to watch. Yeah.
The hulking up spot and stuff. Yeah. As an adult, it's so weird for me to watch it back though. Knowing first of all how much people crapped on him. And then like I'm still trying to protect him because my love for him as a kid was so great. But man, it's hard. Like whenever he's out to the ring and waiting for Macho Man to make his entrance, like he's just like breathing out his mouth. I'm like, God, you're blowing up already. Everybody's right.
And for me as a kid, like I started really watching in '93 heavy.
Mm-hmm.
He was gone at that point.
Yeah.
So like my only introduction to Warrior as a kid was I'd see the action figures and whatever tapes I'd rent, but he wasn't on my weekly TV. So
right. Yeah,
I was not a huge fan of him as a kid just because I didn't see him all that much. Yeah. I knew people loved him, but yeah, the match felt very long. I loved the build up. I love Mr. Perfect. I love Flair causing all that trouble between the two. I thought that was
Right.
really cool. And whose side is he on? But like you mentioned, you had that already with Sherry.
Right.
But
Well, and then it's ironically a similar outcome. Nobody's. It doesn't matter. It was all
yeah,
for nothing. And it's
I
like,
mean, I was more okay with it here. I did. I would have liked something else. I don't know what the thought with Sean Rick was, if they just wanted to get Sherry away from him. But with this match, I thought the finish worked.
yeah,
Um, I would have liked a clear winner, but again, you've got that banger main event coming up, so
correct.
I thought it worked, and it kept Warrior looking strong. I mean, we haven't said what the finish is, but
Right.
thoughts on the match? What do you think overall? Just
Too
long.
long. I mean, that's literally the first thing I've got written down. It is just too long. Um, I got to say, I almost feel bad for Randy Savage.
Yeah,
Of course, it's been widely noted that Randy was very popular for drawing out every little thing in his match kind of thing. He didn't like calling it in the ring and stuff. But man, I'm sure he had a really hard night at the office, if you will, trying to work with Warrior.
yeah,
If and that's not to bury Warrior, that's just to say because he's not used to almost a half hour match.
yeah.
And so you talk about the best in the business trying to have to pull what he can from Warrior.
Yeah.
Because of that, I thought Randy did really well. But yeah, overall, I think this match just gets like twice as much time as what it should have.
And they wrestled a long time. Warrior had a great comeback, and it took a long time for Flair and Perfect to make an appearance. And when they
Yes.
did, they took their sweet time walking down that aisle.
Oh, big time. It was, yeah. No, you're right. Another thing that I'm noticing too is, do you remember before the match starts that they tease the handshake?
Yeah,
I'm like, why? I don't. I mean, obviously, yes, they're both baby faces. You could say that, but if they're kind of vying against each other, if you will, if that's a better term.
yeah. Well, I mean, you got your baby faces. You got a
Mr. Perfect. I'm like, I don't understand why you would try to show a truce before the match
yeah.
starts. That didn't really make sense to me.
I don't know. But yeah,
yeah.
my notes, same as you. It's long. I thought Flair was tremendous once he got out there.
Yeah.
And that stood out to me, like Nate being Nate. I loved that. It's that made me happy just seeing him out there, and I was just wondering, like, oh, should have had Flair do more on the show, but
that's what I think too. Besides just the promo backstage, which was fantastic promo.
Yeah, but like he was awesome, and then you get into it, and your finish is you give Warrior the win by DQ, but Savage is still champion, so it kind of protects both of them. That's why I was okay with this, because they don't want to take the title off Randy at the time. So I was more okay with this being a non-finish, but it annoyed me having two on the show, or two or three.
Two, I believe.
Two.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and what's funny is I'm kind of in the same boat. Like, I'm okay with it protecting Warrior and Savage, but at the same time, like, man, to not have a finish for your act for the WWF Championship on one of the big four, that's kind of disappointing. But again, because of who's involved with it, I totally get it, and I think it was smart.
And I think they were wanting to put more focus on the main event. So you build up those two baby faces in the title match a little more. You put more heat on Flair and Perfect. You've got room to go there. But yeah, I mean, I would have liked to have seen something else.
Yeah, for sure.
But if that main event wasn't what it was, that wouldn't have flown. But because the main event, so obviously I love the main event. So I was okay with this for this match on this show.
Yeah. One thing too that I didn't talk about was both men coming to the ring looked freaking amazing. The attire that they both had on was like over the top flashy, which I remember, but I don't remember exactly. Like until I rewatched it, and actually Anthony came in the room and was like, "My God, look at all those colors! Like
No.
nobody could ever wear that nowadays." I'm like, "Well, keep in mind, like all the bright colors and stuff, that was totally a thing in the early '90s. Like
Yeah.
all the neon and all the bright and the big patterns."
I think Macho was carrying over from the '80s too, but
For sure, yeah.
but I thought Macho looked awesome. Warrior with that flesh tone thing.
So, and that's it was like the muscle
Yeah.
look. Well, and it wasn't for me. That was weird, and it wasn't even just that made it weird. It was the fact that he was in a singlet. I'm like, why? I mean, he was in trunks the whole time he was coming up with Hogan and stuff and getting big. And I get it. You know, you kind of have to reinvent after a while. But I was like, I don't know if this is the best look for you. You know, it was just kind of weird to me.
Agreed.
Yeah. So we get a count out. Which, like you said, means no new champ, but it's a creative finish, I guess, for what we had to work with.
Yeah, I mean, it protects both of them.
Yeah.
So
yep, for sure.
Keeps the title on Macho, but gives Warrior the win.
Yeah. Yep. No, I agree. So yeah. Again, my overall thought on that is it was a good match for what it was. It was just way too long and felt way too slow.
And the other thing, like, I know you want to keep those baby faces, but they kept hyping up Perfect's going with one of them. And I going into it, I was like, that would be cool if Perfect did end up with Savage or Warrior,
right.
and like do a heel run with that. So I was like, well, I'm kind of intrigued what's going to happen, and then neither happened. So
yeah, and I don't understand. To me, again, I know we're kind of rehashing the same stuff, but I just don't get why you're going to play. Oh, you hit so and so and so. Oh, they must be with it, and then you hit them anyway, and it's like, well, what's the point of any of this then? It just kind of didn't really make sense, except for the fact that it was just Rick trying to insert himself into the title picture. And I can't remember what happens at the next pay-per-view or whatever, but I don't remember it being a three-way.
It's 92 is the year I believe Flair wins the Rumble, and he dropped the title to Savage, so he was mad he never got a rematch. So that's why he's running around there. So
Gotcha.
So Flair already had the title run as the real world champ and all that.
That's right. Yes. Yep. Yeah. So Warrior goes over. And now we've got our and I hate to say this, but that's what it's booked as, is your Let Me Up match with Kamala with Harvey Whippleman and Kimchi versus The Undertaker and Paul Bearer.
Yeah. So many great managers. Again, this is nuts.
Big time. What's interesting is that I'd kind of forgotten that Kamala had two.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But
well, one was a handler.
True. Yes. Kimchi. Which was funny because there was one spot in the match, speaking of which, and again, it was totally lost on me as a kid, but now as an adult in the rewatch, Kimchi calls out to Kamala and stuff, and at one point Kamala's down on the ground or something, and Kimchi's at ringside, and you can hear Kimchi go, "Come here." And Kamala goes over. I'm like, what are you doing? But yeah. So obviously the intro when Kamala comes to ring, very typical of Kamala. It probably kind of doesn't date well. But the Undertaker's entrance, however, to me was really cool. Coming in on a hearse, and not just like any hearse, an English hearse, was really awesome for me to see. Just kind of the whole macabre scene, imagery, if you will, with the crow. Well, no, that wasn't the crow. The crow was Mania, but yeah, the glass being exposed inside the hearse where you could see a casket and stuff. It was just really cool.
Yeah, for sure. Great.
And this match goes, and this is, so here's the reason too why I was upset about some of the stuff from previous. The Natural Disasters and Beverly Brothers match goes 10 minutes and 30 seconds. Yet Kamala and Taker gets 3 minutes and 27 seconds. I'm like, ugh. So I'm sure this is a result of bad timing. In fact, I really want to bet that the WWF Championship match, Savage and Warrior, I'm hoping is what went long and kind of screwed them out of time.
It
But
had to.
yeah, because I'm like, if you guys time this out perfectly and this is how it was meant to be, not so hot.
And I'm assuming that 3 minutes is bell to bell because they had entrances and they had some post match shenanigans too.
Correct. Yeah.
So the match itself, I forgot how much of a serious threat Kamala once was.
Yeah, 100%. That's what I thought too. I was like, man, they booked him so strong. Yeah,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
he was a big deal.
And he was moving great. He was getting all his offense in. Taker, a young Taker,
Yeah.
barely any tattoos on his arms. He looked great. He was moving well. I enjoyed it, and then Kamala just went crazy. Boom, boom, boom. More offense, and then him, Kimchi, Harvey are leaving, and Undertaker sits up and chases him out of there.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I liked it, and like you alluded to it earlier, that well, this is going to set up that casket match, and I remember that casket match as a kid, so that was great fun for me. I enjoyed it, even though it was quick.
Right. And part of my my misrepresentation in my mind with the casket thing, obviously, like I said, in the hearse, you could see through the windows, which is not like a normal hearse. You can see the casket. Now, I can't remember, is this before they do the I almost said interview, whatever you want to call it, the pre-tape of Taker making the casket, or is this the casket that was in the pre-tape? I wonder.
So I'm assuming this is well before that.
That's what I would assume too.
Because I remember watching the Undertaker stuff and having to build the casket for Kamala, and obviously, like the feud didn't end, so you don't the casket's the blow off,
right?
But yeah, I mean, Kamala is so strong that was the big surprise to me.
Yeah, same. And I've got it playing now as Taker's coming out, like they're literally like holding Kamala back. So it was perfect booking for, and they tried it again later with Umaga basically, where it's you better hope we don't let him loose kind of thing, because he's a force to be reckoned with. So yeah. And of course, just, I've always appreciated Kamala, and this is a small detail, but the fact that he wrestles barefoot, I'm like, that can't be easy. I mean, not that he's like running the ropes like crazy or doing any high spots or anything, which he does do a high spot in this. He comes from the second rope and does a splash, and it's like the worst splash I've ever seen. He lands on his feet and then like kind of falls over like a sack of stuff. And
I thought it was pretty good for Kamala.
Well, for Kamala, yes, I agree. But yeah, and the pacing of the match, like I said, the match was way too short, but Kamala's doing a good job of trying to stay on his feet. He'll get knocked down, but like kind of get up and like, oh, can't believe you did that. But Taker's pacing to me in this match really stands out. It's a slow, methodical, but this is what I love so much about Taker back then. It would be slow and methodical, but it wouldn't be like boring, slow and methodical, because then after that slow and methodical would be a big burst of power, like a big lariat or something like that, and it's just like, man, it's so impressive.
That flipping clothesline he likes to do, that looked the same most of his entire career, and that was
absolutely
crazy to me, like how it doesn't change.
Yeah, for sure. And I also like the fact too, I spoke about how obviously Paul Bearer's with Taker, but Kamal having two, I almost wonder. Well, I don't wonder. It's just, to me, it's a perfect booking, because then you've got two people trying to kind of usurp the power, if you will, of Taker. But Taker, swats him away like flies anytime that he goes out to the outside. So it was just a great way to keep Taker strong as well. But it also served the same purpose of multiple people holding back Kamala. So yeah, on that match, Taker goes over. And the other thing too that I forgot was before this match is when we have I don't have my somewhere I had it written down, so whatever the name of the it was like the Highlanders Club or something like that, with they play the bagpipes. Roddy Piper comes out and plays bagpipes, which was a cool thing, but I was like, this is completely random, and I felt obviously they're probably just doing it because they were over in the UK.
Yeah. Well, it's
but
nice to get Piper anytime.
100%.
Yeah.
I will. It
And
was funny to me.
that was for the crowd.
Oh, for sure. That was definitely it wasn't a match, but it was like in the let me up spot. Coming off of the Savage and Warrior match. But it was funny to me. If I don't know if you watched it back, but if I remember right, the Scotsmen are out there playing their bagpipes and stuff. Here comes Roddy, and he like literally just takes a bagpipe from somebody and starts playing it. Which was great. But it was funny to me because Roddy's wearing like a bright pink members only type jacket or something, and I'm just like, wow, you stand out like a sore thumb. You don't blend in with them at all. But it was good. It was a perfect spot for Roddy. So yeah, glad he got a payday, brother. But yeah, so we're on to more of your favorites. The next match was another dark match, which ended up, I believe, this is one that aired on Superstars. So I don't know that you were able to see this on your DVDs or not. But we've got Tatanka versus Berserker with Mr. Fuji.
Oh, that's
yet again,
tremendous.
Another manager. Yep.
Yeah.
So yeah. I don't
Not
really
on
have...
the DVD.
What's that?
Not on the DVD.
No? Okay.
No.
I don't believe it's on the network that I can recall. I can't remember. So nothing really to take away from this match except for this match goes 5 minutes and 46 seconds. I would have swapped that time with Taker and Kamala. Yeah. Berserker is another guy that they were trying to give kind of the big man treatment to, if I remember, but for whatever reason, I don't think it really worked with him. I don't know. Something about the character just didn't seem fleshed out. Like, what's a berserker and why does he look like a caveman? I just don't get that.
I thought he looked like a Viking.
Well, yeah, a Viking, but I mean, like if you look at him, he looks like a caveman.
Oh yeah.
There's nothing Viking about him.
With a hat.
Well, okay, but during the match. So yeah, your winner for this is Tatanka. Yeah.
Oh boy.
Let's see here. Going forward. So now we've had several interviews and stuff backstage too. We had one with Brett earlier, and we had one with Bulldog before the Kamala match, I believe.
Gave him a lot of time on the promo.
Big time, yeah. So
started strong.
Yeah,
the promo started strong.
To me, it's funny. I'm glad that you say that about too much time. To me, Diana had way too much time on the mic, and it was and again, I didn't get this as a kid, but in my rewatch, it was very apparent something's going on backstage, and they're like, "Here, fill time," because like I can't remember who it is. It's not Todd Pettingill, but it's somebody like that anyway. Is
Mooney or Lord Alfred Hayes?
Might have been Mooney. It's definitely not Alfred. Alfred was backstage doing the something else. No, so it's Sean Mooney. What's funny? So he'll ask Diana, well, what do you hope happens in this match, or who do you hope wins? And she's giving these, I mean, nail and void, like just nothing there kind of answers. Like, well,
I just hope no one gets hurt.
Hope nobody gets hurt. Yeah, and I'm like, I mean, she's doing nothing, in my opinion, in this interview to enhance the story. Now, once the match is going, I think she's brilliant. I think it's a great addition. But to put a mic in front of her, I was like, oh, bad move. But what was funny about that is, so he's Sean Mooney has got the microphone and is asking questions, and so all of a sudden, and you could tell he's trying to like buy time. He's trying to draw things out. And he's like, so who do you hope wins? And she's like, well, I hope. And okay, and here, and I'm like, wow, that was abrupt. There was just this abrupt change before the entrances and stuff. But yeah, so yeah, needless to say, I thought she was. I'm obviously it served a purpose to interview her. And you kind of, if we've interviewed both moving pieces with Bulldog and Brett, it makes sense to have an interview for her. I just almost wish it would have been pre-taped. But yeah. So yeah, now we've got our.
They also had other family members taking sides.
True. Yeah.
I
Oh,
think I want to say Owen was with Brett, and Smith or Bruce was with Bulldog.
I think
I don't-
Bruce, if I remember
Bruce,
right. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Um, which I thought was interesting. I didn't. I mean, I get the choosing sides, but first of all, it's a stacked deck to have any hearts.
Yeah.
Like, of course, they're going to side with the hearts, but the fact that they didn't, that was kind
But
of interesting.
Bulldog married a Hart, so he's family too. And
True,
that's the story they were telling.
true. So yeah, so here we are. British Bulldog, hometown hero, if you will, versus the WWF Intercontinental Champion, Bret Hart. Hey, there you go. Nice.
Little Bret Hart, little
Oh,
Bulldog.
very cool.
This is from my childhood. I was
Really,
huge Bulldog mark.
really.
Yeah, go Matilda.
There you go. Well, there you go. And shoot, here's another thing that I should have written down that I didn't. Um, we've got what's the Olympian's name? Do you know that's leading Bulldog down to the ring?
Oh, I can't remember. Was it? It was late. I started fast forwarding. So through
Yeah,
the
no,
entrance.
yeah.
Yeah.
I duly noted. I will take better notes from here on out. But yes,
What was
so
it?
I
Ken
thought that
Patera or?
no, it wasn't Kim Patera.
Uh,
Man, I cannot remember his name, but I know him. But anyway, so I thought that was a cool touch to have him bring Bulldog down to the ring. Before we get into the match, though, and obviously I'm going to ask this, and I 100% understand why it was done. But what are your thoughts on the main event of the show? The last thing being not the WWF Championship, but being the IC title.
I think it gives the IC title credibility. And at this point, nobody was going to follow Brett and Bulldog.
Agreed.
And
I think
I think you need to do the IC title in the main event once in a while. Every couple of years, it needs its place. It has its place. But
I 100% agree with that. And as a child, I never understood it, but the psychology must have worked subliminally because I was a big fan of the IC title. To me, the Intercontinental Championship was like, you hear it, it's kind of thrown around loosely now, but it used to be like the working man's belt or, the workhorse belt. And man, by putting it on a main event, it only solidifies that. So yeah.
yeah.
Um, what are your thoughts? I don't know. So British Bulldog comes out first, then Brett, which of course Brett is the title holder. And over the years, that's kind of been flopped around as far as does the champ come out first or last. I will say that's probably, in my opinion, on this one, a time where Bulldogs come out second. Let your champ come out first, just because he's a hometown guy. But then again, considering the finish, they're going to get their pop anyway, so maybe it doesn't matter. But yeah. So before we get into the match, do you know any of the behind the scenes stuff that happened coming into this?
Doing the research, I saw the thing about the staph infection, but that's about it.
Okay.
Like where Bulldog said he had a staph infection going into it, and then later Brett was like, "I question his injury."
Right.
But that's the only drama I really heard about. What
Gotcha.
else? What else happened?
Well, there's a lot. So prior to this match, Bulldog is actually suspended. He's not active, if you will, on the company. Wellness policy violations, essentially. And so, long story short, and again, I should have taken better notes. Originally, it was supposed to be Bret Hart and somebody, I can't remember who now, having a match here tonight at SummerSlam in '92. And Brett goes to Vince and says, "Hey, if we're moving to London, like it only makes sense to have Bulldog there, and I'll drop the title to him, and I think it'll be massive money." Keep in mind he's suspended, and so Vince, long story short, agrees. That'll be great, pal. And so Brett makes the call to Bulldog and says, "Hey, I've got you on for SummerSlam at Wembley," and he gets to the arena late. He does Bulldog. Brett is like, "Hey, what's going on?" And apparently, according to Bret Hart's book, during this suspension of the wellness policy, Jim the Anvil Neidhart and British Bulldog have been doing crack like nonstop through this whole era. And so supposedly he's like cracked out of his mind during this match and all this. And
I do remember this somewhat, but I just remember Brett telling a story somewhere where they do that over the top rope spot, and Brett has to like hook him to like save his life.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember that. I forgot the reasons why, but yeah, keep going.
Yeah. And so Bulldog's like, hey, it's okay. We'll make it through the match. No big deal. Again, what I was saying earlier with Randy Savage trying to take care of Warrior during a 28-minute match. This match goes 25 minutes and 40 seconds. And I'm sure Brett felt the same pressure. Sober, Bulldog would be able to carry his weight phenomenally. But looking back, it's like, man, I'm sure there was a lot of work put on Brett. Now, watching the match, it doesn't, even knowing what I know for the behind the scenes, it doesn't seem like, he's like out of his mind. Bulldog is out of his mind and, not capable of being there. I've never done crack, so I don't know what it's like, but to me, he doesn't seem that phased. It's not like he's drunk and wasted and falling down and that kind of stuff or can't remember things. Overall, I thought the match was.
I was going to say, like, Brett carries the first half of the match, I'd say. Just,
he does.
Like, they do the chain wrestling, go hold for hold, and Brett's. I did notice there were a lot of sleepers, but yeah,
yep.
a lot of sleeper holds.
Making a lot of calls. Yep, for sure.
But it was great technical wrestling.
It was great technical wrestling, and it was, again, and I'm a big fan of this, it was great pacing for the scale of match that it was. Having all of the all the chain wrestling and stuff was really good. And plus it just really kind of solidifies the story of Brett and the dungeon and all this. This is kind of the beginnings of when we learn as fans, when we learn about, Stu Hart's dungeon and all the actual Hart training and stuff like that. So that's a strong memory for me as a kid, is finding out that these two were related and what they have in common through Stu and that kind of thing. So yeah. Overall, so and also to the, like I said earlier, the camera cutaway shots to Diana and the audience, like every time there's a big move, and her sells are great. It looks like she's like she could cry any minute, and just like she hates to see these guys have to duke it out, but she understands to a certain extent. And I think that's kind of where they fall short on the storytelling with her, is like it was just, oh, I hope nobody gets hurt, but it wasn't. I hope nobody gets hurt, but I understand why they have to do it. Like yeah.
They built the story up. It is what it is.
Yeah,
she's there.
Yep. So yeah, no. Overall, I thought this was a fantastic match. I don't know how many stars or anything it gets. I'm going to assume probably a 4-star match. It was pretty solid to me.
I loved it. It's one of my favorites as a kid. It's one of my favorites as an adult. I thought the story was great. I love Brett going for the figure 4, turning into the sharpshooter, Bulldog getting the ropes. I thought that was all beautifully done. And
did you notice on the sharpshooter that you were talking about, though? Did you notice as he's wrapping his feet, he wraps his feet the wrong way and has to re-wrap them, kind of thing, before he flips them over?
That happens. Yeah,
100%. That's I'm glad you say that too, because I'm the kind of person, like, I don't get stuck on that kind of stuff, but I did notice it. It was just one of those things. Yeah. But yeah.
But for me, the Brett goes for a sunset flip off an Irish whip, and Bulldog sits down, covers him 1, 2, 3, and I thought that was the perfect finish.
Oh, it was out of nowhere. I was like, man, yeah, that was money for sure.
Crowd popped. It was awesome.
Yeah, just the whole unexpectedness of it was perfect.
And I know, like, there's been interviews where, like, Davey thought he was made that night, and it was a great moment for him getting the IC. But I mean, that was the night they really made Brett a main eventer. So taking him from the Hart Foundation to his stuff with the Intercom, feuding with Shawn, and then dropping it to Bulldog, it was perfectly done. And 93 was going to be Brett's year. So.
Mm-hmm. Yep. For sure. It was definitely the exact turning point in Brett's career, in my opinion. And sometimes for some people, it's not always quite so visible, but this one, it stands out big time. Like this
It's
is
that aha moving up.
Yep, for sure.
Like
And I think
what's
Vince
next?
too. And I think Vince too. Like I was alluding to earlier with Brett suggesting. I mean, supposedly that's what's out there that Brett suggested having Davey in this match. That only shows Vince that he's capable, not just in the ring, but you know, he's got the mind for the big picture kind of stuff, like what's going to draw us the most money and that kind of thing.
And
And he was reliable for him.
You put that on top, and you sell 80,000 tickets.
Yeah,
that's a good sign.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So let's see here. We've got, of course, the winner is British Bulldog. So we've got our new champ. And what are your? So I've got. Let's see here. There's your winning shot. That I mean, just the unity and stuff. I really enjoyed that storytelling post match. And then of course the big moment was the big hug. That was to me really really cool. Good stuff, man.
So iconic, like
very, and that's exactly a perfect way to put it. It's very iconic.
28 years later, it's still one of my favorite matches.
It's super easy to go back and watch too. It doesn't. There's not. I mean, yes, there's a lot, like you said too. There's a lot of holds and chain wrestling and stuff in the beginning, but it paces well for some reason in this match. Whereas a lot of times when I watch stuff from the early '90s or especially the '80s, I'm like, golly, if I see another sleeper hold, I'm gonna scream at my TV. But this one felt like it had it with purpose. I mean, obviously, we know he's calling spots and stuff. Brett is to Bulldog, but it was so right. Everything about this match was so right.
That's my favorite match on the show, hands down.
Oh yeah, I would say my second would probably be man. See, I'm such a mark for Taker. I really want to say that, but honestly, the Legion of Doom and Money Inc. match was really good too.
Yeah, same.
So I would say one of those two for my second place.
LOD for me. Just that hot opener with the motorcycles and everything was awesome.
For sure.
And Rocco.
Good old Rocco. Yes, indeed. So, whoops. Go away. So overall, I thought the pay-per-view was really good. I will still stick with the fact that I felt like some of the matches went too long and some of the match ups were just kind of thrown together nonsensically. But overall, I mean, everybody seemed to make the best of what they could. And again, to reiterate too what you said, I feel like there should have been more payoffs than what we had with some of the fantastic build-ups to the match.
Sean and Rick, specifically.
Particularly Sean and Rick, 100%. Yeah, that every piece of that puzzle was putting in so much. It just, you know, the booking end of that really kind of sucked. I wish they would have changed something in the booking, seeing how well that was working with all three people. Honestly, props to Rick Martel for stepping up and not getting lost in the shuffle. Because you know, he held his ground in the story of that. So yeah. I'm trying to see. I don't have my main notes, but we've got another show coming up soon.
Yeah.
Next week. What do you have on the agenda for next week?
That's in my own notebook.
Got it.
There you go.
Got it. Found it. So, oh man, I'm so looking forward to next week. Okay. So according to what we have kind of sketched out for a schedule, if you will, next week on our third episode, we are doing our top 10 debuts.
Oh, this is gonna be a blast! Yeah.
Oh man, I'm so looking forward to this.
Oh, that way, that way.
Is that kind of
way? That guy.
I gotta say, I'm shocked. So, let's kind of put some ground rules on this. Do you want to keep this WWE? Do you want to open it up to debuts of anything, of anybody? I will say I do definitely want to differentiate debuts from comebacks. So like Hunter coming back at the Garden, I'm not counting that.
Okay. So first time with a company debut.
Yes.
Can be any company, but it's got to be first time.
Correct.
This just got interesting.
Yeah, because I agree, and I think there might be potential to do a comeback episode or a return episode.
Yeah,
Um,
for sure.
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
looking
So
forward
I've
to it.
oh man, me too. So debuts to me kind of a lot of at least most of the time, and especially in WWE or WWF, debuts are associated to me a lot with entrances, and I put a lot of value in entrances for wrestlers, and yeah, they've they've kind of really taken the cake on debuts. Has WWE or WWF? There's been other ones that have been really fantastic in other companies that we'll talk about for sure, but yeah, I
Are
think
you referring to a shocking one?
quite possibly. But
Oh,
yes, it does go to show that WWE kind of cinched the market on how to debut somebody and give
yeah.
them a lot of bang for their buck. So
All
yeah,
right.
so I'll have a top
Looks
10,
good.
you'll have a top 10,
Yeah.
and we'll kind of compare notes
Yeah. This week was SummerSlam '92. Next week, top 10 debuts.
for sure. And on the SummerSlam thing, I know we talked about this previously, and I don't remember if you mentioned it at the top of the show, but this is the first pay-per-view that you watched. Is that correct?
Uh, it was the one we rented a bunch. Mania '93 would have been my first pay per view. So
Gotcha. Okay.
yeah,
Very
but
cool.
yeah, this was one of my earliest exposures to pro wrestling.
Awesome. No, that's great. Yeah, like I said, I thoroughly enjoyed the show. I was glad to be able to rewatch it, and yeah, looking forward to a lot more good stuff.
Yeah,
It's one of those things too. I would like to talk about like how I would rebook things and make them better and stuff, and we kind of did to a certain extent. But until I was older and really got to sink my teeth into like the longevity of the storylines and the nuances of them, that's really whenever I'm able to sink my teeth into here's how they could have done this and they could have twisted this a little better and done this. Back then it was just like, oh, they gave so and so too much time, or they didn't do a finish for this, or it just wasn't a fleshed out idea. So as regards to the actual review of our namesake, if you will, I would like to be able to in the future critique things more from a creative standpoint. But yeah, overall, I thought it was good. I thought it was a good watch. So
awesome.
all right, and yeah, I think that's going to do it for our show today. Thank you very much for sticking around and checking out Recliner Wrestling Review, and we will see you on the next go round.